Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with a lot of noise. All right, so I want to talk to you guys about the Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Who are going to be playing a series coming up very soon, I believe within the next day or two, probably Saturday or Sunday. I don't know when the series begins, but it's going to be it's going to start in Indiana. That series 4-5 matchup, and just off the top, I think it's important to say that Dame Lillard is not expected to be back into the series until the end of the series, if at all, because of the blood clots. And then when he does come back, what is his conditioning due to that condition, so to speak? And that will really kind of hamper what we think overall going into the series. You really want Milwaukee to have all their horses. Now, it's been said, although I haven't been watching too much about Milwaukee, I haven't really seen too many Milwaukee games this season. How are you going to say thank you? It's been said, it's been said that the Milwaukee Bucks have kind of shifted their style of play to make Giannis a playmaker, and it's really been very successful for their basketball team. I think that could pose to be a very dangerous thing for a Indiana Pacer team that doesn't really play defense very well. Now, they have weapons everywhere. Indy does. They're one of the best offenses. I don't know if they're still as good as they used to be last year when they were breaking records as an offense, but they still have some of the same talent. Very, very potent offense. Thinking of guys obviously like Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Thomas Bryant, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Aaron Naismith, TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin. This is a very dangerous and potent offense. So that really is something that needs to be understood. Going up against a team without Dame Lillard, it's going to take Milwaukee having guys step out of themselves in the playoffs to kind of offset all of that offense that's going to be coming at them. It's a lot of offense. Now, Milwaukee has some guys that are starting to play really well for them, though, out of nowhere. Ryan Rollins, from what I understand, has been playing good on both sides of the floor. And so maybe he makes a name for himself. Maybe he steps into a different territory as a player in this series. They got Bobby Portis back. That's important for the Milwaukee Bucks and their overall ceiling. Obviously, you still got Splash Mountain, Brooke Lopez, still playing at a level that's noteworthy. Kyle Kuzma's now in place. They got him in the trade from the Washington Wizards. He's won a championship, so I think that could both very positive for their overall team. Porter, they got from the Clippers. Kevin Porter Jr., he's been playing out of his mind for the Milwaukee Bucks, from what I understand. I still think that Kevin Porter Jr. has all-star upside. I've been saying that since he was drafted, or rather since he came out of the G League. I just think the world of his ceiling and his ability. I know he had some things happen that pulled him away from the game, but I think he's played well with the Clippers and then even better with the Milwaukee Bucks, and has the ability of being a monster performer where people don't actually expect for him to be that level of a performer. So I think that if anybody's going to help overcome the absence of Dame Lillard, it's probably going to be Porter. And him playing at a high level, making good decisions, is going to be essential. And hitting shots and stuff like that, and just overall being very talented out there. So Milwaukee has the experience. They won the championship. Indiana, unfortunately, ran into some real injuries down the stretch of their season. Was one of the easy teams that Boston was able to mow over after injuries hit and just sent them home. But they're going into this postseason a bit more healthy. Tyrese Halliburton looks more like himself now after that messed up injury that he had at the end of last season. Almost took him a full year, maybe a little more, to look like himself again. I think he's pretty much getting back to that level that you would expect from him. One of the best playmakers in the game. I think people have forgotten how good he is, to be honest with you. And I think he's going to show people probably in this playoffs. So You know, I think that this is obviously noteworthy to say that this Milwaukee team and this Indy team has had issues with one another. This is somewhat of a new rivalry, so to speak. They do not like one another. They've had a lot of history in the regular season, dating back a couple of years. So I think that could potentially be something that really makes this one of the more interesting series in the first round. It may be the most interesting series in the first round once these games get started. So I'm very curious about this series. And another thing that really I'm really concerned about on the Milwaukee side of things is if Dame comes back, them wasting a game trying to get him in rhythm, wasting a game, putting him on the floor with limited minutes, and him just trying to jack up shots, trying to get himself back in rhythm. I think it cost him a game in this series, and I don't think they can afford to miss out on consistent continuity. I think it changes the play style and the dynamic that ultimately they've been balling with Giannis kind of being point forward. Giannis, I would not want to audible out of that in the middle of the series. I would not. And so that's something that I've been thinking about. I believe that Milwaukee is a much better team with Dame on the floor, but I don't think Milwaukee is going to be better for it in this series if they have to bring him back in like game 5 or game 6 and he's rusty, lethargic, playing at half pace, being horrible defensively because of it. I think that bodes horribly for the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think it could potentially cost them the series depending on when it happens. And so I think they should rule him out for the entire series. And if they want to bring him back in the second round if they're lucky enough to get there. Because I don't think in any way he could be a positive to this series unless he comes back soon, like game 2 type soon, and get all that crap out the way early. So by the time they have a game 5 or a game 6, he's himself. But if you're asking him to try to come back in game 6, you risk him being a defensive liability and potentially being cold but shooting a lot of shots. And so I just think that's a horrible way to go. And I don't think Doc Rivers should let that happen. So that's my thing. If Dame is really able to go early in the series, no problem. But once we start getting around to game 3 and game 4 and he still ain't back, and they're up 2-1 or down 2-1, I ain't doing it. No, you out. And I just don't know that they, as a franchise, are going to actually do that because of what Dame means to their franchise at this point. So that right there has them at a disadvantage for me, just the Dame factor. I think they may potentially be playing better ball right now just off the strength of what I've been listening to and how well Giannis has looked. But I feel like if Giannis gets off to a hot start and he's playing well and has point Giannis in this series, I would not audible out of that play style to fit Dame back into the situation. I would not. And so that's something that I'm thinking about there. If Dame can mold himself to being a guy off the bench like a microwave scorer until he can get himself back in shape, maybe that could help the team. But even then, you don't want him jacking up shots, taking possessions away, playing with second units. It could just get real tricky for them. So I have questions about the defense of the Milwaukee Bucks as well. When I just look at the potent offense of the Indiana Pacers, I don't have any questions about the Pacers defense. It's no good. But their offense is their defense, and it's been that way for a couple years. And they do have some players that can play some defense. They just don't play good team defense, which can be a little tricky when trying to assess if they can get stops at a given moment. Nembhard can be a nice on-ball defender at times. I think, Miles Turner has been proven to be a good rim protector throughout the course of his career. Naismith is a strong player. I'm not sure how good he is defensively, but he can be strong. Halliburton has been said to be a defensive liability, but he certainly wasn't when he was drafted. If anything, that was one of the things that people used to rave about, how good he was defensively. Can he turn his defense up in the playoffs? Pascal Siakam, of course, is more than capable of getting a stop and buckle down. So I just think the Indiana Pacers, they could have a Giannis problem in this series, which could all bets off. If Giannis is Giannis, it's going to likely be a close game just off the strength of him being himself. But I don't know if I am all the way sold on them being able to out-execute the Indiana Pacers in a close game situation. With Indy basically being fully healthy with a massive amount of depth. And Milwaukee, meanwhile, being out of Dame, a fresh Kyle Kuzma, who's been playing for a bad team for the last 4 years. I don't know that really bodes well for Milwaukee. Porter's coming back off of the suspension is big, but where is he at in his rhythm at this point? Can I count on him to be the big Bobby Portis that he's been? Or is he still trying to work his way back into rhythm? Lopez shot making is huge. But is he going to be able to do enough to offset the youth of Thomas Bryant, Obi Toppin, and these guys? I think Obi Toppin turns out to be a much more dangerous player in this series than people are even anticipating, because he is really someone who can go off for 30 points, string together 7 threes when he's getting hot. Obviously, he's a hot fly act at pretty much 6'10". This is a really, really dangerous player in this series, especially if for some reason they have to turn to him if Pascal gets in foul trouble or something like that. They can audible into his piece and suddenly have production that's almost as good, if not better, depending on the night. So I'm a big Obi Toppin guy. I just think the world of what he's been able to show when he's given minutes on the offensive side. Defensively, he's not going to help you too much, but offensively, he's able to kill you from so many different, in a plethora of ways, scoring the ball. And so I think that he's going to play huge. It's going to be incumbent upon Kyle Kuzma to outplay him somehow. Kyle is going to have to be a very positive offensive player and a solid defensive player in this series to offset what I think could potentially be a wave of offensive potency from the Indiana Pacers. And you got the TJ McConnell factor. That dude is so scrappy in playoff situations. He is such a headache to deal with. And forgetting about him could be a death blow to your series. You got to damn near scheme around TJ McConnell, because he is that talented of a bench guy and unassuming in his role as one of the guys that just kind of gets thrown out there at times. But in a playoff situation with rivals, like, his mind is going to be in the game. I can guarantee you, TJ McConnell, whether people are thinking about him or not, he's going to be all the way present in this series against the Milwaukee Bucks. So that right there, I think, is going to be a dynamic that has to be dealt with. And like I said, Aaron Naismith is such an aggressive player. He's going to drive at the rim, take contact, be physical. Andrew Nembhard, I'm a believer. I like what he can do. I think his role is kind of diminished some, but I really like what he can do out there. And then Tyrese Halliburton not turning the ball over. That's going to be a thing. Milwaukee's not that great of a defensive team, really. I don't know if their defense has improved since making the trades that they have. I'm just not aware. But Indy has those playmakers that don't tend to turn the ball over too much. And so, but get a lot of playmaking and get everybody involved consistently. So I just like Indy in this situation a little bit more than I like Milwaukee. I understand Giannis is the best player on the floor, and he's been playing at such a level that you have to love what he's been doing. But I don't know that Milwaukee is going to be able to overcome them. Not this season. Not with them having home court advantage on top of that. And y'all know I'm not a Doc Rivers fan. I've kind of calmed down on that this year as it pertains to just making him the focal point of the conversation. I just think that there's too many other factors that weigh heavier than the coaching in this conversation. But I do like Carlisle more, so that's worth saying. But I think at this point, you have to look at the experience of Giannis, Bobby, Lopez, and say they should be able to overcome a lot of things given the fact that they've been through so many wars, had some success in these playoffs. They don't have Middleton with them no more. Obviously, Drew Holiday's long gone. But you have to feel good about those three being able to find their way in this series if it comes down to experience, they got it. And so that's my point of view. I think that working with one another over the course of several playoffs really does make this a very interesting series for those three. And it's going to take them all having a good series to offset what I know for a fact Indiana's going to be doing out there, which is creating havoc, creating absolute and utter havoc. And so that's really my take on this particular series, man. I just think, you know, I have to see what Giannis looks like to really be certain. Because if, like I said, if he's playing at his all-time great level, then I don't see anybody in Indiana that's going to have any success in stopping him. And he by himself, along with a little help, can be enough to offset an Indiana Pacer team, especially if he's motivated as he has been in the past at times. Giannis is the best player on the floor, no question. But does he have enough around him to offset the multitude of things that are coming at him? And not having home court advantage, I think, really hurts him. So that's really what it is. I'm crying ignorant because I just haven't seen what he looks like playing like this. Everything that people have been saying is he's just playing out of his mind. I could totally see him winning the first two games, suddenly Indiana in trouble because of him just being a monster out there. And they just can't stop him. Maybe their shooters aren't hitting shots. Maybe Tyrese Halliburton's having one of them over type games. And then all of a sudden, Indy doesn't look as potent. But I think on paper, which is what I'll probably go by, on paper, Indy just a bit more potent. And that home court advantage gives them the further edge. So I'm going to go Indy. I'm going to go Indy in 6. Maybe 7. Yeah, I don't think they'll win this. If it goes 6, I don't know that they can win that Milwaukee game and on the road. So I'm going to say Indiana in 7. That's how I feel. Indiana in 7 over the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to give Indy the edge. They are the better team this year. Dame missing. I'm just going to give them the edge. But I'm not overly confident. I don't want people to think I am. Giannis is a hell of a deal breaker on a lot of different things. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDO44, and I thank you all for watching. I'm out.